The hour, so we'll let you continue to gather, but just rest assured that you can hear us okay. And we'll be getting started here in about 4 minutes. Thank you so much. Good morning for those just joining us here in the FAMLI from CDLE July webinar, and we'll be getting started in about 3 minutes. Thanks so much for being with us today. Good morning for those just joining us here on the FAMLI webinar with CDLE, and we'll be getting started in about 2 more minutes. Thanks so much for your patience. Good morning. This is Colorado's Paid Family and Medical Leave July webinar. So thank you to everyone who is joining us this morning. My name's Tracy Marshall. I serve as the Division Director for the Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program here at the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. Joining me this morning, I have our Operations Director, Rachel McCombs, and our Senior Policy Advisor, Adam Siramarco, plus several members of our Policy and Communications team to help us ensure everything runs smoothly and to make sure we can answer as many of your questions as possible at the end of this session. If you could please put your questions into the Q&A function on Zoom, That would be super. I do apologize if you're hearing any background noise. There is some activity happening outside of the offices today, and it's certainly echoing up a little bit to where I am. So my apologies if you're hearing some distraction behind me. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items to go over. So a recording of today's session will be available on family.colorado.gov shortly following this webinar. If you registered in advance, you'll also get an email from us with the link to the recording. We're also streaming today live on YouTube. And if you're watching from YouTube, please ask your questions in the comments section. If you're joining us this morning on Zoom, again, please make sure you use that Q&A function on your Zoom dashboard. The chat function will be disabled, but our team of panelists will be sharing helpful links in that chat throughout the session. We do have a large audience watching today, so we may not be able to get to every question, but we'll certainly get to as many as we can, and we'll be moderating those questions both from Zoom and from YouTube. We'll also be providing you with our contact information at the end of the session, just in case we don't get to your question. Closed captioning is available on both the Zoom and the YouTube channels for anyone who would like to utilize that. A quick look at our agenda for our time together today. We'll be doing a snapshot of the first 6 months of the family benefits in Colorado. We'll do an overview of the program. We'll take a look at how much you'll be getting paid if you need to take a paid family and medical leave for Colorado. And then we'll also take a look at filing for family and help you determine which type of leave you should choose. And as always, we'll allow plenty of time for your questions when we get to the end. So first things first, I really do want to celebrate family benefits reaching the 6-month mark for Colorado's workers. So far, approved claimants have been able to start taking their time away from work beginning on January 1st of this year. I'm really, really pleased at how the program launch has gone, and we're seeing so many workers being able to utilize this program and then successfully return to work once they've been able to address their personal and family needs. With that exciting news, here's a quick refresher for you on what the FAMLI program is. So as a reminder, FAMLI provides paid leave for Colorado workers to take care of themselves and their loved ones during certain life events. Colorado workers began paying premiums into the FAMLI fund in January of last year, and the benefits went live in January of 2024. The program covers almost all workers in Colorado, including those who are self-employed if they wish to participate. The FAMLI program is a social insurance program funded by both employers and employees, but self-employed workers are responsible only for the worker premiums, which is 0.45% of their wages. FAMLI participation, again, is entirely optional for those who are self-employed, so long as they don't employ anybody else. Taking a look at the numbers of the activity we've seen in the program so far, in the first 6 months from January through June of 2024, the FAMLI division has paid more than $311 million in partial wage replacement to people who are taking approved absences for paid family and medical leave reasons. The average weekly payment that we're sending out to workers is around $915. And so far, we know that over 44,400 Colorado workers have successfully completed their family leave and been able to return to their previous lifestyle. So the statistics, we're certainly very, very proud of all of them. But on this graphic, you'll see a statistic that shows you that 96.7 of those people who were interacting with family were able to file their claim using the state's My Family Plus online portal. If we can go to the next slide, please. Looks like we might be having some technology issues, but I will continue talking for you. So that's the one. Thank you so much. So 96.7% of family claimants have filed their claim using our online portal. And that means they've been able to go end to end through that process without needing to reach out to any of our contact center agents. And they've been able to self-navigate through that process. The two most common reasons that people are using family leave is for their own serious health condition and also to take time away from work to bond with a child that's recently joined their family. We've seen around 38,000 claims for serious medical conditions and about 33,000 for bonding. The last graphic on this screen shows that the average leave duration for a family leave is coming in at around 53 days. So not everybody's taking, a full 12 weeks of leave, and that's certainly not what we would expect, but we are seeing an average of around 53 days. With that, I'm going to hand you over to our operations director, Rachel McCombs.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you. So I'm going to start by going through an overview of the entire family claims process. So the life of a claim really starts when there's a need for a foreseeable leave and an employee tells their employer that they will be filing a family claim. We always encourage employers and employees to be communicating about these things. So of course, we know that people will have those unexpected medical events that may make it impossible to notify their employer in advance. But, this process that we'll go over will be for those foreseeable leaves of absence where they are communicating in advance for, say, something like having surgery. So let's say the employee will file their claim and the family division will send employers a notification letting them know that an employer of theirs has filed a leave claim. Once that employee gets all of their supporting documentation in order, we'll let the employers know when the leave is approved. Once the leave begins, the pay replacement the employee will be getting will come from us at the family division, not from their employers. And if they make any changes to their claim, they'll let us know, and then we'll let the employers know. Now, let's use an example. Let's say an employee is out for a wrist surgery, and they're recovering pretty well, and they're ready to go back to work sooner than their doctors originally told us that they need to go back. That employee will let the family division know, hey, I can go back sooner than the date that was originally scheduled. And then the family division will let the employer know about the change to that employee's claim. Now, the key takeaway here is that employees are required to tell their employers about their leave either 30 days in advance or as soon as practical when the unexpected happens. Now, this is also really important if, let's say, an employer has an additional employer-provided benefits available to top off those family payment benefits as well. So that's all really good information to keep in mind. Now I'm going to hand you over to my partner, our senior policy advisor, Adam Saramarco, and he's going to walk us through some information about, how family benefits pay and different ways to take leave. Adam?
Great, thanks, Rachel. First thing I'm going to talk about is how much family benefits will pay. So family benefits pay a benefit that is proportional based on your current weekly wage. A weekly wage actually is calculated based on your most lucrative quarter from the past 5 completed quarters. And the family benefits are going to be up to 90% of that amount on a sliding scale, with people who earned more earning less in terms of a percentage of their normal weekly wage. So on the first row, you'll see that someone who normally earns $500 for their weekly wage will have a wage replacement benefit under family of 90% or $450 per week. And that turns out to be about $5,400 annually if you use all 12 weeks of your benefits. If you make $1,500 per week, your weekly benefit will be $1,044, which is about 69% of a wage replacement benefit. And this graphic shows what you would earn as your employment, as your wages go up. So you'll notice that whether you make $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, or even more on a weekly basis, right now, your benefits are capped at $1,100 per week. So that cap is going to be proportional to the state average weekly wage, which just went up by about 3.5%. That doesn't change the cap for now, but it will in a bit. Every July 2025, the cap as well as your percentage will be increasing. You may have actually seen some notifications saying that your benefits have increased as a result of the increase in the state average weekly wage. Just as a reminder, premiums are paid on gross wages up to the federal Social Security wage cap. So keep that in mind that this number is not set in stone, as the federal Social Security wage cap changes from year to year. So will the family wage cap and premiums. Next, I'm going to talk about a little bit about how eligible workers can take time off. So in this graphic, you'll see some examples of what time off looks like on a continuous schedule, a reduced work schedule, and for intermittent leave. So eligible workers can take time off any one of these ways. A continuous leave is as a single big block of time. So for example, if you just had a new baby and you want to take 12 weeks off in a row, you would take a continuous leave for 12 weeks. A reduced work schedule is a little bit different. It is consistent like a continuous leave, but you're not taking your entire work schedule off. So a reduced work schedule would be useful if the employee is able to work only part of their schedule on a very consistent basis. Say, for example, you had a health condition that required treatment every Friday, and you need to take every Friday off. That would be best done on a reduced work schedule where you're consistently taking Friday off. Intermittent leave is a little bit different. Intermittent leave allows you to take irregular intervals of leave up to a certain amount of time off per week or per month, depending on what your healthcare provider certifies. And the difference between an intermittent schedule and a reduced schedule is that you don't know when you're going to need to take it off. For example, say you have migraines and you don't know when they're going to hit, you might use an intermittent leave schedule. Of course, those are just examples. Eligible workers can take time off using any of these schedules, whatever fits their needs. And for example, a parental bonding leave can be taken using any one of these types of leave schedules. Next, let's talk a little bit about intermittent leave and reduced schedules. So there's been a little bit of confusion about the difference between intermittent leave and a reduced work schedule. And since this has been a little bit confusing, we wanted to dedicate a little bit of time talking about it here today. So intermittent, like I was saying before, means not constant or not steady. We like to compare it to the term irregular. So meaning that you can't predict when you're going to need it. Intermittent leave is for conditions that strike without warning. Like I said before, like debilitating migraines. So on the other hand, you have a medical condition that requires treatment for a couple of days per month, and those are scheduled in advance. Those would be more apt to fit under a a reduced work schedule, not an intermittent leave. And that's because you know in advance when you'll be out. Just a reminder, like we said earlier, it's important to keep your employer in the loop. You are still required to notify your employer of days you're taking off, even on an intermittent or reduced work schedule leave claim. And that's very important to keep your employer in the know on when you're taking one of these claims. The way this works in terms of getting paid is every week you're going to get a weekly certification task on Sunday. If you complete that task by telling us how many hours per week of leave you've taken for that week, if you complete that task on Sunday evenings, you'll probably see benefits appear in your account or on your debit card by the following Tuesday. That task is due on Tuesday, meaning you have to complete it by the Tuesday following the Sunday that you get that task. You can usually expect payment about 48 hours after you complete the task. So for more details on intermittent and reduced work schedule leaves, please go ahead and visit our website. And I'll go over a little bit about that as well, too. Our website contains a lot of useful information. And I just want to point you to our family toolkit. So you can go to our normal website, family.colorado.gov, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a search bar. Just search toolkit, and this will be the first page that comes up. This toolkit is available for download, and it contains a lot of really good information, like the Employer's Guide to Family, which outlines everything employers need to know on how to implement and remain compliant with the law. The Employee Handbook to Family is a great tool for employees to refer to and employers to have on hand to add existing employee handbooks, to add to existing employee handbooks, and so employees are aware of their rights. We also have a family fact sheet that you can print out and an application checklist that you can have handy for when you try to apply for family benefits. All of these pieces of information are also available to download in English and in Spanish. And I think they're a great resource, so I encourage you to read them. Finally, I just want to let you know that we want to hear from you. You can engage with us in a number of ways. You can visit our website, family.colorado.gov. That website also has an email address that you can use to get in contact with us. But we'd also love to hear from you through social media or by phone, Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. So don't hesitate to reach out to the Family Division if you have a question that just can't get answered in today's webinar. And with that, I will go ahead and hand it back over to our hosts for questions.
All right, thank you so much. I'm not sure who our moderator will be today for questions, but I will pass those to our communications team. We're ready when you are.
I'll take it, Tracy. Thank you. We've got a lot of questions coming in, and several of them are being answered by our wonderful group of panelists typing out those answers so we can answer as many as we can. I am going to start with a question from Lacey. She's asking, how far back can a family leave claim be approved? Tracy, do you want to take that one?
Yes, so we can approve back up to 30 days unless there are extenuating circumstances why the claimant wasn't able to submit that application timely.
Thanks, Tracy. We have another anonymous question here. The question is, I thought FMLA and FMLI ran concurrently. Adam, do you want to explain that a little bit more?
Sure, happy to. So, yes, Family Medical Leave Act is meant to run concurrently with family benefits. And what that means is when someone is taking family benefits, that FMLA runs concurrently. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the opposite is true. For example, if someone took FMLA benefits in 2023, for example, at the end of 2023, even though that's within the last year, that would not necessarily reduce their benefits under family. So concurrency is sort of a one-way street.
Thanks, Adam. We have a question here from PJ. I'm wondering if Josh, maybe Adam can answer this one, but it has to do with our HR benefits portal and the My Family Plus employer side of things. PJ is asking, how can we check the balance of an employee's account if they're coming from another employer? And PJ, I'm assuming that you mean, how can you check the balance of time that they have left to take on family leave? Josh,
I can try, a little bit on this. So currently, family does not share what the claimant's benefit balance is. We're reviewing that to see if that's possibly something we may share in the future, but that's something that the claimant knows because there's many reasons. They might have other employers, stuff like that. So for the time being, that's why we provide an exhaustion letter. If they are out on continuous leave and they exhaust all of their benefits, you are then notified immediately via that to know. But currently, whether it's the portal or our notifications that go by mail, do not provide employers with bank balance.
Thanks, Josh. I have a question here for Lindsay concerning private plans. The question is, how long does it take? No, that's not it. Apologies. Of course, now I can't find it because there's so many more questions coming in. The question, Lindsay, was when can employers expect to see a refund if they have an approved private plan if they haven't received their refund yet?
We are currently processing private plan refunds for premiums paid in 2023. We have processed more than half. We're actually sitting at about 60% of private plan refunds processed as of now. We do request that employers who have premiums that are still to be refunded either return their list of separated employees if they're choosing to have the family division process those refunds to those separated individuals. If you could get those to us as quickly as possible, that would be very helpful. We also do need your assistance in getting refund information. So ACH routing and bank account numbers, that sort of information. If you would like to expedite that refund process, we sent out a refund agreement. We can post the link to that refund agreement in the chat so that you have that information. But that does allow us to process those refunds more quickly. By completing that refund agreement, you do agree to issue refunds to those separated employees yourselves instead of leaving that for the family division to complete. And again, that does expedite that refund process significantly. And we'll get that refund agreement link into the chat for you.
Thanks, Lindsay. I have a question here for Tracy, coming from Mandy. Can you explain who qualifies as a family member if you're taking leave to care for a family member? I know that your family is more extensive than FMLA. Tracy, can you take that?
I'm happy to take that one. Again, apologies for any noise in the background here. Your family members, from our perspective, are the people who are like family to you. We know that families have many, many unique makeups and can sometimes, it could be a elderly neighbor who you're providing care for, and you're their person. You're the person that they call in the middle of the night if something goes wrong. That person would be considered by us to be a family member for you if you're the person responsible to support and give them care. So it is quite a broad definition of family member, very different to FMLA.
Thanks, Tracy. Our next question here is from Misty. This one is for Josh to answer. Her question is the employer required to send Colorado Family, FMLI, medical paperwork, i.e. medical certification form, or do they get them from FMLI? Can FMLA med certification suffice?
Yeah, I'll try to answer that. So I think what you're asking is it the employer's obligation to send paperwork to family? And the question is no. We do not deal with the employers unless there's a grievance. It's the claimant or employee's obligation to provide documentation to family. Once that's received by us, we will then adjudicate the claim and make a decision. That documentation has HIPAA and all kinds of private information. That's why we do not share that back out with employers. You are only notified of approvals and basic information on leave reason and stuff if you request that. So hopefully that answers your question. So please don't try to send us in. You don't have access. We don't have a fax number or anything like that. We have our portal for the claimants to upload their documentation. Back to the FMLA paperwork. Unfortunately, that does not suffice for family because there's many other varying reasons and differences in the leave types. We can use that as supplemental information, but we do require our own serious health condition form to be completed if it's a medical claim by a doctor because we need other information. And then if it's a non-medical leave, we would need the required documentation, whether it's proof of birth, placement, or something like that sent in. So hopefully I've answered all sides of that question.
Thanks, Josh. I have a question here from Adam. It's an anonymous question. If the employee is approved for family, but does not meet the level of disability required to receive short-term disability, Is the employer required to pay the short-term disability offset regardless of merit approval?
So we can't speak to what is required under your short-term disability policy. An approval for family benefits does not necessarily mean that the person will qualify for short-term disability. Um, so no, it doesn't necessarily mean that, but this will be up to the terms of your short-term disability policy, not family.
Thanks, Adam. I have another question here for Josh. It sounds like this is a intermittent leave question and or reduced schedule question. The question is, why do employees still have to send family their time missed, even if they used all family hours?
I'm not quite sure the question, but if they've exhausted all their benefits, they do not have to report time to us. What we rely on intermittent and reduced scheduled leaves is, as Adam mentioned, for the claimant to either come into the portal and report that time off or our contact center. But if they've exhausted benefits, if they report time, they're not going to get paid anyway because there's no benefit. So they're only required to report time on time that's missed, or if that leave has ended and they've exhausted their benefits, that leave can stay open, or they can come in and act. What they should do is end their claim with us, notify us, and they can end it sooner if they've exhausted the claim. So it's not an open-ended, exhausted claim, if that makes sense. But we do not require them to report time if they have exhausted benefits.
Thanks, Josh. I have another question here for Adam. What if an employee states that their state-approved intermittent leave form shows a different frequency/duration from the FMLA certification they provided to us? Are we, as the employer, allowed to ask for it and then compare and confirm?
So that would be a question for the folks who run the FMLA. As far as family is concerned, that may potentially constitute retaliation or interference to the extent that it's something that you're doing that you're not lawfully allowed to do. That might be considered something that is harassing behavior, but that would, in my mind, probably turn on the question of whether the FMLA allows you to do that. So that would be a question for FMLA folks: is what are you allowed to do under FMLA in those circumstances?
Thanks, Adam. Here is another question for Josh and or Adam. It's about intermittent leave and or reduced schedule. The question is from an employer: we are getting summaries of leaves approved, but they are covering a long length of time, and then the work schedule is only for 1 week. It doesn't say which week it is for, though. How does the employer know which week they're referring to so we can decide if the work schedule matches ours?
I'll take a stab at this one. The notices that are sent out should have the week on that notice. So that's what we go off of. So again, they come in during that week, report the time, but it should have that date range on that intermittent leave or reduced schedule approval notice that gets sent out weekly if they do submit time. So if you're not seeing that, I would encourage you to call our contact center and see if you can get that information, but we clearly indicate the weeks it's approved. Now, if their work schedule does not match, that's again where you get to come in as an employer and unfortunately would have to file a grievance and report that they're reporting time that they actually did or did not work.
Thanks, Josh. I'm going to go back to Tracy now. We have a request to repeat what family is. A neighbor can be considered family. Did I hear that? If so, what is the proof that we need to consider claimants as a caretaker?
I'm actually going to hand that one to Josh because it's his team that reviews this kind of paperwork. But you are correct when you heard that it's certainly possible that a neighbor could be considered a family member for you or a very, very close friend in that kind of situation. But Joshua, what are you and your team typically seeing for this kind of documentation?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways you can go about this. So when you do that, when you file a claim, it asks what that relationship is. You indicate it by selecting what that relationship is, and if it is that other, you need to provide information and or documentation. And our rules cover some examples. It could be a signed affidavit or statement stating that you care for that person. It could be shared responsibilities like rent or utilities, things like that. So it does vary case by case, and our team may ask for more information, but you can't just say, Tom down the street and I'm taking leave for it. You'd have to provide us something. Usually the easiest thing is some sort of statement signed by you confirming that there's some sort of relationship or you take care of them or they have nobody else, and we would accept that. But you can't just give us some general information. So I know that was a weird answer, but it varies. And since it is a open definition, there are lots of ways you could try to prove that family-like relationship.
Thanks, Josh. I have a question here for Adam from Carly. The question is the 180 days when someone also is eligible for family?
No. So you are eligible for family benefits potentially on day one of your employment, assuming you meet some basic criteria. You have to have earned $2,500 in wages in the last 5 quarters, roughly. So if you're brand new to Colorado, you wouldn't be eligible for family benefits on day one. But if you used to have a different job in Colorado and then moved to another job, you are eligible based on your wages from your previous job on day one of your new job. The 180-day requirement is different. The 180-day requirement is when job protection kicks in, which means that your employer is obligated to reinstate you to your previous job upon the completion of your family leave if you've hit that 180-day threshold.
Thanks, Adam. I have another question here for you, or perhaps Lindsay. The question is, I have an associate who took intermittent Colorado family leave, but has taken the time off continuously. Is there anything we as the employer can do?
Potentially. I think there's always a possibility of filing a grievance, though I will caution on that, which is that sometimes intermittent leave can look like continuous leave and can be very appropriate. For example, if you've got a person who has a doctor's certification that says that they might need up to 40 hours a week off intermittently, maybe they take 6 weeks off in a row, but maybe that's because they had a medical condition that legitimately required them to take 6 weeks off in a row. If you have a good reason to believe that your employee has taken more leave than they are allowed to take, you can always submit a grievance to the family division if you believe that they've taken advantage of the situation.
Thanks, Adam. Another question about grievances and redeterminations. So perhaps Lindsay, you can jump in here. But how long does it typically take for a grievance to be reviewed and a new determination be made?
Generally, grievances are processed within 15 business days. That is because we are required to reach out to both the employee and the employer to get necessary information to make that decision. The best way to speed up that process is to respond timely to any requests for information that you receive from the division, and to respond with as much information as you have available to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Adam, this next one is for you from Ken. He's asking, can you please explain the calendar quarter aspect of Colorado earnings?
Sure, that's a good question, Ken. So the earnings are considered only once a calendar quarter completes, meaning that the earnings that you've made from July 1st to now would not count for family purposes because we are currently in the third quarter of 2024. Only wages from completed calendar quarters will count. for family benefits.
Thanks, Adam. Another question for you, Adam. What happens if an employee doesn't come back to work at the end of their leave?
Then they don't have a job. So the employer potentially is required to reinstate the employee to that position, but that does not equate to an obligation to hold that job open forever and ever until the employee comes back. If they don't come back at the end of their leave, you are not under any obligation to hold their job for them. And you comply with your reinstatement obligation by offering it to them back once their leave is complete.
Thanks, Adam. Josh, I'm wondering if you can answer this. It might be a difficult question to answer via conversation without being able to show an example. But the question is, can you provide an example of what a reduced schedule notification looks like? I've only seen the intermittent notification for family. I want to make sure the employee is completing the other hours of the day or using PTO for the work schedule they are not using family hours for.
Yeah, I can try my best again without seeing the examples. And again, I'm not an expert on how they look, but it would be very similar to the intermittent leaves. First, you'll get your notice of when it's approved, and it will say what that reduced schedule has been approved for. So it's slightly different than intermittent. The reduced schedule says they can work up to a certain amount of time per week. So you got to think the opposite, that they can not work other than that. So if a doctor says they can work up to 20 hours a week, then on the parameters, when they come in and report weekly to us, they can report up to, again, this is very confusing without examples. You have to know what their work schedule is, and they kind of say, hey, I did not work X amount of hours. And that can vary because reduced schedule is tricky. It's not every day they're off 2 hours. That could be a case. Some people, hey, I work 8 hours Monday to Friday. I'm going to only work 6. That's a very simple example of reduced schedule, but there are other variations. Like I said, if the doctor says they can work up to 20 hours, they might work a 10-hour shift one day and 2 the next, as long as they don't exceed whatever hours the doctor said they could work up to. So it's kind of complicated that way, where there's those 2 variations, but the notice will tell you the hours that they are able to work up to, and then what the claimant reported to us. So that means what they're getting paid for family. And it's very complicated without examples, so I tried my best. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Josh. Adam, I have another one for you. There's a lot happening in this question, but it's something that we haven't quite touched on yet. So an employee has to continue benefit payments while on leave. And I'm understanding this to mean health insurance benefit payments while on leave. Do the health insurance benefit payments have to be made via payroll deduction? If an employee misses a payment or chooses not to pay, do we as the employer need to provide notice before we cancel health insurance coverage? Example, is there a grace period for them to pay? If payment is due on the 5th, then they have 30 days to pay. So one thing I think you should start with is, do employers need to continue health insurance coverage for employees? Go from there.
So yes, employers are required to continue health insurance benefits for employees while they are on leave. As far as the details of how that works, this is a long and complicated question. And what I'm going to do is I am just going to drop a link in our chat here, assuming I have the authority to do that. That is to our current guidance on this issue. Wonderful. So if you don't happen to get this, you can go to the website family.colorado.gov, and in the upper right hand corner there's a search bar. Just search for healthcare benefit, and you should be able to get to this page. You can also get to this page through our rules and uh, our rules website, our rules page as part of our website. Bottom line, I don't want to butcher this, and it's complicated, but that link has everything you need to know.
Thanks, Adam. Another question for you from Abigail. If an employee is per diem and not scheduled to work, how would the state handle the employee's request for leave?
So the leave would be granted based on the number of hours that they are taking off. And just because they're paid per diem doesn't mean that they can't tell us how many hours that they're missing. So if on average they work, 8 hours per day, 5 days a week, they would tell us their regular work schedule is 40 hours a week. And if they miss one of those days, they would tell us how many hours they're missing. And that would be up to them to tell us how many hours they're missing. If the employer believes that that is an inaccurate description of how many hours that they've missed, they are welcome to file a grievance if they like. We pay based on missed hours, not based on missed dollars.
Thanks, Adam. Another question, this one about self-employed individuals. For self-employed individuals who receive professional fees, how is their benefit amount figured?
Sure. So the benefit amount for self-employed individuals is based on your gross wages from self-employment. And there are some definitions of this on our website, but basically what you do is you submit a copy of your tax returns to us. We look at the tax returns to figure out what your gross wages from self-employment are. And then you are going to get a benefit amount based on the gross wages from your self-employment.
Thanks, Adam. Seems like FMLA and family are a hot topic today. Another question here from Carly. Does FMLA or family trump one over the other? Let's say we approve 12 weeks of FMLA, block of time leave, and the employee submits a family case and requests 12 weeks of intermittent or reduced scheduled leave, which is approved.
That's a good question. In that case, so I would say neither one necessarily trumps the other, but you have to comply with both. As far as in that situation, the employee would be protected for the intermittent leave they are granted under family, and then it would be up to FMLA regulations as to what would happen with that seemingly contradictory application for FMLA leave. And I'm not sure how the FMLA would handle that.
Thanks, Adam. Trying to find a different topic here, but there's a lot of FMLA questions. Here's an easy one. Adam, you can take this. Is there a specific notice that we as the employer need to send to the employee?
In terms of, do you have context for that, Jessica?
Unfortunately, I don't have context. That is the tricky part about these Q&As, is that I don't have context, especially if there's follow-up. I can't always track which is a follow-up to which question. I'm understanding this as our required program notice. However, anonymous user, if this is a follow-up to another question, please feel free to type it in the chat and provide as much context as you can. But the question here is there a specific notice that we send to employees?
Sure, yeah. So there is a required program notice. Just like up in your break room, you're going to have notices for minimum wage and all kinds of other laws. We have a notice that's similar that's required to go up in an inconspicuous place where everyone has access to it. And then there's a second requirement, which is you are also required to deliver that same program notice or a similar one with all of the same content in it to an employee when you as an employer learn that they are going to be absent for a reason that you have good reason to believe could be covered under family. Those notices then need to be delivered individually to that person.
Thank you, Adam. This question is for Josh. It's a topic that we haven't covered yet. Can you confirm that if someone who has complications from pregnancy delivery and they are approved for 16 weeks of family leave, that only the 12 weeks are paid and the remaining 4 weeks is unpaid but job protected?
Sure, I will speak to that. So if they are approved for complications, again, just so you guys know, it's not an automatic 4 weeks for complications. It's up to 4 weeks, so they may only get 1 week if they needed bed rest or extra recovery. So please keep that in mind. That is not guaranteed 4 weeks. If they are approved, the notice will go out. What's tricky is the claimant gets a 12-week bank. Those extra 4 weeks are not part of that 12-week bank. And for that reason of it being complicated, we don't just add that back to their bucket. So it would be subtracted separately. They will get paid out for that leave, though. It is not unpaid leave. It is just like every other part of family. So it is job protection. It is partial wage replacement for whatever dates that you are notified that they are on approved leave, unless you receive that exhaustion notice that they have ran out of benefits.
Thanks, Josh. This next question, you could potentially answer, and/or Adam, you could cover it. The question is, if an employee is going out on maternity leave under FMLA and family, do they get additional time off for bonding? Could you provide more examples?
Adam?
No, no, I'll take it. No, they don't. If they're going off on both simultaneously. When you're out on family and out on FMLA for the same 12 weeks, that counts as 12 weeks for both if it's overlapping over the same time.
I'll piggyback on that. And just a reminder, family is a collective bucket of 12 weeks. So it's for all leave types. So you don't get 12 weeks for different reasons. Once you start a claim, you start a benefit year and you have 12 weeks to use for any family reason. And, if you exhaust that 6 months later and you go for bonding, you don't have another bucket. So it's use it whether it's bonding, recovery from a medical condition, stuff like that. So hopefully that helps as well.
Thanks, Josh. And Adam, I'm going to go back to the previous question with a little bit more context. The question about notifying employees, is there a specific notice, was a follow-up to the question about whether or not we, the employer, has to offer family, or does the employee have to ask for family?
Oh, so the employer doesn't offer or grant family. The Division of Family and Medical Leave Insurance is the government entity that offers and grants family. As an employer, you are required to participate in the family program unless you have unless you've gotten a private plan that is at least as good as family or better. And there are several insurers that offer private plans, but no, the employer is absolutely required to remit premiums to the family division, as well as report wages to the family program. But you, as the employer, don't offer the benefit; the state offers the benefit.
Thanks, Adam. Josh, you might be able to answer this. Hopefully you can. The question is, how soon is the employer notified that leave dates are approved for family? Another question was similar. It was specific to pregnancy complications. If someone is approved for the up to additional 4 weeks of leave, are the employers notified of those additional leave time?
Yeah, so I can take that. So employers are notified at the same time a claimant is. So you get a notification as soon as they file a claim, and you're given information that, so this said person filed a claim with these dates. The next notice you get is when we make a decision on that claim. Now, the only notice you will get is if it's an approved claim. You will get a notice saying, hey, they're approved for whatever. If you don't receive any other notice after that, that means they have not been approved. And then the claimant has the option to appeal that. You will only be notified again if they happen to go through our appeal process. So if you're not getting some other follow-up notice after that claim has been filed, more than likely they were not approved. So again, we very strongly encourage you to have communication with your employees and have them talk to you. What are you doing? What leaves are you taking? Have you been approved? They can share their notices and information with you, and that's what's going to make this program work. Yes, we send you guys stuff, but if they put in maybe the wrong employer connection, you might not get notices there. So there's little things with our system that isn't perfect, but that's why we want you guys to talk with them. But once we make those decisions, if it is a approval, you'll be sent a notification right away. And it goes for the same with that pregnancy complication. Sometimes they file that as one claim and it will be included in there. You're just going to see that maybe they're approved for a longer leave. Sometimes they go for bonding and realize, oh, crud, I didn't know that I could get complications. We've seen a few of these complication claims filed after the fact, but you'll get a separate leave notice for that with different weeks that are approved. So again, we've got to work within our parameters on when we're told by a claimant and stuff like that. So it might not always look pretty, and that's because that's how we get the information as well from the claimants. But you will get notified as soon as possible when a decision has been made. And if not, you can always call our contact center. But again, if you never got an approval letter after it was filed, more than likely that means a decision has not been made. Whether they did not give us paperwork, that claim will also close in 60 days after filing if we do not receive everything, and that is not considered a properly filed claim. That is not appealable. They can't go back and do anything. So there's lots of variations in there. But if you are ever missing a notice or want anything, you can always call our contact center to try to get an update.
Thanks, Josh. And that's a perfect segue because my next question is, if we call your hotline as an employer, what is the best prompt to pick to talk to someone? And Tracy, feel free to jump in if there's anything I missed. But the bottom line is, if you call our call center, you should be able to get the help you need from whoever picks up the phone. We recently combined our two areas of expertise so that our contact center representatives can answer questions both from employers and from claimants. So when you call, just let them know that you are an employer and you're asking about your employer account. We have a few minutes left, so we're going to try to sneak in a few more questions. Here's one about private plans that I'm going to toss to Lindsay. If we have a private plan and an employee, exhausts their 12 weeks under the private plan and then quits and gets another job, does the state know that the employee already exhausted their 12 weeks under our private plan, or vice versa? Do the state and private plans communicate?
This is an area where we definitely are looking at some enhancements about how does family talk to private plans about claims and vice versa? How do private plans talk to each other? So it does require employers letting us know that someone has previously had a claim either under a private plan or under the state plan. And unfortunately, that does require some communication with the claimant. We are relying on self-reporting to a degree. Private plans can request information from us, and we can request information from private plans about claimants where we believe that a claim has been taken in the past. But again, this is something that we have in our enhancement backlog so that we can make this more efficient for everybody.
Thanks, Lindsay. Another question for you, Josh. I'm hoping you can answer this one. If the up to additional 4 weeks is granted, and it's not counted in the same 12-week bucket, is it a separate claim in the HR dashboard?
Again, it depends. So if it was filed as one claim, say a pregnancy claim, complications, and go into recovery, that will all be on one notice. If the claimant did bonding for a little bit, then realized, oh, wait, I didn't know I could do that, and filed after the fact, that would be a separate claim, and for sure would be a pregnancy one for, up to that additional 4 weeks. So it could be either or. Again, we're making some enhancements on our system. If a claimant is not filing as like a pregnancy claim, those notices might not be including that caveat that says, a complication, and you may be getting, an additional 4 weeks. We are reaching out to the claimant. They are getting a notice of approval. It just doesn't have on that letter that it's a complication, but nonetheless, they will have a approval letter, and it would be on the dashboard either as a separate claim or combined. So that's a complicated answer.
Thanks, Josh. Adam, I have another question for you about FMLA. We use a forward-looking FMLA. If an employee uses FAMLI and FMLA starting May 2024 and uses all 12 weeks, when would their ability to apply for FAMLI again be? When would they be able to apply again?
Sure. Finally, I can answer one of these FMLA questions. I know you're all getting sick of me saying, well, that depends on what FMLA would do. This one doesn't. So you're eligible for FAMLI again, regardless of your FMLA claim, once your family benefit year resets. So if you started your benefit year under FAMLI on January 1st, your benefit year ends December 31st. And you would be eligible potentially again January 1st of the next year. So you start once your family benefit year resets.
Thanks, Adam. See if we have any topics we haven't covered yet. We've got about 3 minutes left, so we'll choose a few more questions. Here's one, Lindsay, perhaps you can answer, or Adam. Can we offer a paid private plan leave for employees except for employees who live in Colorado and have access to FAMLI? So if this employer has both out-of-state employees and Colorado employees, can they offer a private plan for everyone else who doesn't live in Colorado who has access to FAMLI?
So your Colorado employees would have to all be covered under either the state plan or a private plan. You couldn't have any mixture for your state employees. I don't see a restriction on covering out-of-state employees under a private plan and Colorado employees under the state plan. Adam, do you see that differently?
I do not. That sounds absolutely correct to me. If you want to give your out-of-state employees some benefit, knock yourself out.
Thank you both. Adam, this question is for you. Do we have any guidance related to employees who are paid commission only?
Sure. So commission is still part of our definition of wages. So regardless of whether they're paid a combination of commission or commission plus some salary or commission plus some hourly wage, commission has to be reported to the family division as part of the employee's wages, and the employer is required to pay premiums based on those commissions.
Thanks, Adam. Here is another coordination of benefits that does not have to do with FMLA. Can the employee choose to use paid sick, vacation, or PTO hours while they are getting family benefits?
Yes, potentially, if the employer and the employee have agreed to supplement that person's family benefits with PTO, sick time, vacation time, etc. So as long as the employer and the employee agree in writing to do that, then yes, they can. The only restriction is that they can't get more in PTO and sick time plus family than their average weekly wage. So there's a cap on the amount of PTO or sick time that they can use, meaning they can't receive a financial windfall by family plus PTO, meaning they get more than they normally would.
Thank you, Adam. And we have reached our time today. So I am going to send it back off to Tracy Marshall. Later this afternoon, if you registered in advance, we will send you a recording of this session, which will also be published to our events page on our website. So you'll be able to reference it in the future. And again, we hope to continue this conversation. Tracy, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Thank you so much. Thank you for the great questions. We've answered over 100 of your questions today between the chat and the live answering. So keep them coming, and we'll continue to get information out to you as quickly as possible. Again, thanks to all my team. Thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge. Take care, everyone, and we will see you next time.